Good afternoon. Deborah Watkins, aka Auntie Deb, certified Christian life coach, author of the book From Mediocre to Marvelous, Get Out of Your Rut, and Live a Fulfilled Life. Before I start, I'm going to ask that you subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. I need subscribers. And give me a like if you like what I say. And also give me some comments below. What I want to talk about today is one of the topics from my book where I'm talking about personal power. And one of the characteristics of personal power is being authentic. Being authentic. No one has your DNA. No one has your voice. No one has your fingerprint. Not even twins. You are uniquely made, and I think that's amazing, how we are, fearfully and wonderfully made. That's what the Bible says. The Bible says you are fearfully and wonderfully made. But yet and still, we try to emulate others. Now, one of the things that's unique about me, that's distinctive about me, is my voice, right? I have a deep voice. I have a very powerful voice. And I remember at work sometimes when I would be walking through the halls and talking, and inevitably, someone would say to me, I heard you all the way around the corner. Your voice carries, because that's how distinct my voice is. And I had to be careful too, because I had to make sure I was never talking about anybody. Because my voice carries, okay? But yet, like I said, we still try to wear our hair the same way somebody might wear their hair, or dress like somebody else dresses, or mannerisms that we use, the car that you drive, where in the neighborhood you want to live in. And that's all fine. That's all fine, because fashion is fashion, hairstyles are hairstyles, trends are trends, and, we get ideas, okay? We get ideas and creativity from others. That's fine. But do it because it compliments you. Like a lot of times people are dressing and it doesn't compliment them. They don't have the figure for it, or whatever. They don't have the head for it, or, whatever. Be authentic. Be the real you. Now, let me give you the definition of authentic before I go a little deeper with this. In the dictionary, it says, not false or copied, genuine, real. Another definition, having origin supported by unquestionable evidence, verified. So your realness is without a shadow of a doubt who you are. Without a shadow of a doubt. Representing oneself, another definition, representing oneself, one's true nature or beliefs, true to oneself or to the person identified. And that's a lot of the problem, what's going on right now in the world, is that people are taking on someone else's values and beliefs. A lot of times they don't even believe it. They're just taking on somebody else's values and beliefs because you haven't gone inside yourself to really discover who you are and what your values and beliefs are. Because as I've said in other talks, we all have a purpose for being here. We all have a gift or a talent, something that brings us here. And so you want to tune into that because you're on the come up. You're trying to elevate. You're trying to go to, places that you've never gone to before. There's a reason why you want to be authentic, because now the people who've done that, right? the trendsetters, the ones who've come up with the ideas, they don't look at nobody else. You ever notice that? They're not looking at anybody else trying to be someone else, trying to dress like them, trying to wear their hair like them, trying to sound like them, you know? And a lot of times we do that because we think that, oh, well, who I am is not good enough. Like who I am, like I'm not polished enough, or I'm not educated enough, or I'm not skinny enough, or I'm not shapely enough, or I'm not articulate enough, or I just don't have the qualifications. You know, one of the greatest orators of all times is Barack Obama. Now that man could put together some words like, you know, I've never heard, right? But it's him, and it just rolls off of his tongue because that's who he is. But you don't have to sound like him to be taken serious. You don't have to sound like him and to be powerful. All right, you don't have to take on his mannerisms in order to be influential or to rise up. And you know, whatever it is that you're trying to rise up at, you know, just be who you are. You know, I look at, you know, someone, you know, look at Cardi B. Okay, Cardi B is who she is. All right. But look how much influence she has. Now, I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm not here to judge her, whether it's good or bad. I'm just saying she is who she is. She's authentic. She's who she is. Okay? Hood, whatever. Okay? But the girl is doing her thing because she stuck to who she was. She didn't try to be anybody else. Okay? And then you have, you know, someone who's not of Cardi B's, you know, characteristics and mannerisms. And they're maybe a little more softer, okay? They have a little different flavor, but that's who they are. And so just be who you are. No one likes a phony, all right? So a lot of times you're thinking that you have to be a certain way, like, you know, it's like in a dating world, right? People, those first 6 months, you're not even seeing the real person. You're seeing the representative. I'm telling you that right now. You're seeing the representative. You're not seeing the real person, okay? That's why when you first start dating and be all excited and everything, and, you know, it's funny, like you'll be having conversations with your girls and everything, and they're like, oh, you know, he this, he that, he this, or she this, she that, she. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's nice. You know, give it time, because, you know, you haven't seen the real person yet, right? And so in my book, I talk about being authentic because there's some characteristics, and it's important because, you know, sometimes in our workplaces or personal lives, relationships, we're not doing well. We're not having success, and we're like, well, why am I not, you know, having success in this area, or friendships or relationships, or my job, or, you know, whatever. And, you know, a lot of times it might be because you're not being who you are, right? Now, so a lot of times, you know, people talk about keeping it real, right? And I'm not talking about the keeping it real where you're being rude and you're being hurtful for the sake of keeping it real, but what you really have is an agenda, okay? You have a hidden agenda. It's not that, you know, I'm just a keep it real person. No, you want to be hurtful, okay? And so that's something different. When I'm talking about keeping it real, I'm talking about not trying to be something that you're not or someone that you're not, okay? And authentic people are not afraid to show their imperfections. They're not afraid. When I was in the job and I would make mistakes or I would do something wrong, most people try to cover up. They try to cover up or try to pass the buck or pass the blame on somebody else. And, you know, I just got to a point where I was like, yeah, I did it. I messed up. Okay. So I'm a solutions person. How we gonna fix it? That's straight up. That's where I was at. How we gonna fix it? I'm not about to try to say I didn't do it. Yes, I did it. Okay? And that would just disarm people because they would be ready to this like go right in on you. And I'd be like, nail me to the cross if that makes you feel better. Okay? But I wasn't about to try to cover it up or try to blame somebody else or, no, just, yes. But here's the solution though, okay? I'm coming with a solution. Yes, I did make that mistake because we are, all human beings, perfectly imperfect, all right? Now that's one thing we are perfectly at, is being imperfect. So that's one of the characteristics. Another characteristic with authentic people is that they don't brag about what they have or what they do. They authentic people let their actions speak for them. Right? They let their actions speak for them. They let other people brag on them. They don't brag on themselves. They let other people brag on them. And even in the Bible, Proverbs 27:2 talks about you letting other people, talk about your accomplishments, not you. Maybe that's why nobody is resonating with you because you're bragging all the time. And they're hearing you. People are hearing you, but they're not listening because nobody likes people bragging. They don't like a braggart. They really don't. And so James 4:16 talks about James in the Bible. 4:16 says boasting is evil and arrogant. Okay? Anybody know anything about the book of James? He be putting it out there. He says it's evil and arrogant. So I said all that to say this. Be authentic. Be who you are. There are people out there who you resonate with, okay? Don't worry about who somebody else's audience is. Don't worry about what somebody else's audience is. Their audience is not your audience. Who you're going to influence is not who they're going to influence. All right? God gave all of us our own circle. All right? So worry about that one. Do not worry about the next man's circle. Because you are fearfully and wonderfully made. All right? Subscribe, hit the like button, and give me some comments. Love y'all.